Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that is Caleb, and today we are predicting a huge, crucial game for both teams, Nebraska and Purdue, in a wild one this weekend. It's been an interesting start to the lines and the public opinion on this game, so we have a lot to talk about. X-Factors, keys to the game, and of course, predictions. It's going to be a blast. Caleb, how you doing?
I'm doing great. 3 games into the Big Ten schedule for Nebraska, and here we are. 2 guys top of the Big Ten West standings, duking it out in Purdue. Exactly something you wanted to see. It's nice playing some relevant football 7 games into the season. And hey, here we are having a chance for that all-important trip to Indianapolis. So it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But okay, so off the rip here, the odds right now are at about 13 points. Some sites have it at 13.5, over under 58.5 right now. So Purdue is heavily favored. I mean, I think most Nebraska fans assumed Purdue would open up as a favorite, but 13.5 or so is heavy, to say the least. So overall, Purdue's had a really interesting road so far to this game specifically. So we'll start talking about Purdue and then talk about X-Factors and then predictions, of course. I mean, off the rip, they started off the season with a really interesting, really close game against Penn State.
They were leading the game
35-31, and they had every chance to win it. Then they smacked Indiana State 56-0. Then lost to Syracuse on the road 32-29 in a really close game. I mean, again, they had every chance to win once again in that game. Then they came back home against FAU, where O'Connell didn't actually play, and they squeaked it out 28-26 with a backup quarterback in play. And then had back-to-back really impressive wins here at Minnesota, 20-10, at Maryland, 31-19. So they're coming into this game against Nebraska at home with pretty high expectations after really impressive road Big Ten wins.
Playing some really solid football offensively. As you said, they've scored here pretty much very consistently in that 30-point zone, except for the FAU game. And their defense has had some highs and some lows. They've received 34 votes in the AP polls, and they're ranked 33rd kind of right now. PFF has them at 41st in the country, and then Nebraska, we're chilling up there, very close at 74th. So,
we're climbing, baby.
We are. We do have the second toughest country, second toughest schedule in the country according to PFF
remaining.
But hey. We're ready to go. It's a new team, about to win them all, so pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy from Nebraska's perspective. This is, debatably our easiest game left in the schedule now that Illinois is a top 25 team, and depending on what you think about Iowa and Wisconsin, obviously. So it is going to be fascinating. So starting off on the offensive side here for Purdue, of course, this team is highlighted by Aiden O'Connell and their passing game. They have the 3rd highest passing rate in the country at 62.43%. So they love throwing this ball. They don't trust their running game whatsoever. It's been interesting. So what are your thoughts on O'Connell and this Purdue offense?
Obviously, his stats are a little bit lower because he didn't get that one FAU game, but still a really solid season so far. 1559 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks. Again, just looks like a kind of a next level QB, not like, a lottery draft pick one, but just a really solid NFL backup type guy, really poised in the pocket, throws a really good ball. He's not the athletic get out of the pocket. He's a true pocket passer, as we've seen. And again, the good news, like you said, is they're a one-dimensional offense. What they're going to do is throw the ball. Aiden hasn't looked as amazing, though, as he has maybe in previous years. A lot of people, I kind of think, were figuring Aiden would kind of make another jump. Maybe, he would sneak up there because he had some great games last year, incredible QBRs. And it's like, is this guy going to be,
right,
moving up the draft boards?
Talent,
Yeah. And I guess that just hasn't really happened this year. He's the 52nd graded QB in the Power 5.
But I mean, Casey at this point this season has showed off more downfield ability, and maybe that's because of the lack of weapons there for Purdue right now. But Aiden O'Connell feels very comfortable just dicing up around the line of scrimmage with Charlie Jones and those weapons he has.
Yeah, Charlie Jones, Iowa transfer.
Yeah.
Crazy. He's been definitely one of the breakout players of the Big Ten this year. He has 50 receptions, 603 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Shout out Charlie Jones, former Iowa guy. He has as many touchdowns catching as Iowa's whole offense does this year. So, definitely tough for Iowa.
Stat right there.
So, I was definitely missing him this year, although I can't blame him. if I was getting thrown to by Spencer Petras, I think I would have transferred as well.
Get out of town.
So,
yeah, no doubt. I mean, Aiden's interesting, though, because like you see that arm talent there whenever he throws the ball. I mean, he can sling it almost effortlessly to the sidelines, and he attacks down the seams, and it's like the zip on the ball is really impressive. But we've seen so far this year that he's got himself into some trouble with trying to force the ball, got a little cocky trying to force the ball in some really tight windows. In the Minnesota game, he was picked off twice, like on some pretty cocky throws, trying to force it in there to like Charlie Jones. And like even against Maryland, he had some bad throws. So like we've seen the inconsistencies there. And it's the reason why he's not like seen right now as an elite quarterback in college football right now, because of just the mistakes he's been making like that.
Yeah, it's really the little stuff over the middle that he seems to be getting picked off by, kind of linebackers. Hope maybe Luke Reimer can have a game kind of with that. It doesn't really seem to be the safeties or corners so much as it is, like linebackers getting picked off, or QB spies when extra guys are kind of in that backfield. And he just decides to make those throws anyway in between those tight window spacing. So it's definitely interesting. Again, like he can throw some really nice balls, but still, like you said, and like the deep threat just isn't really there as much. While Charlie Jones has definitely caught some long touchdowns, they're contested catches, and that's why it's been so impressive. And same with Payne Durham, his other main target, the other guy that we're going to be talking about a lot. Again, you can't forget about that tight end. He's had a great season. Another Big Ten team with another really good tight end. And
yeah, I mean, dude, he's such a weapon on third downs. I mean, like, like on 3rd and 5, you're looking for some sort of Payne Durham, like inside cut route, or like maybe a seam just down the seam, something like that. Like, is so efficient for them, and that's definitely where they're at their best. Is 3rd and mediums are dangerous for them, not because they're running, because they're trying to throw the ball here to like either Charlie Jones or Payne Durham. They have some other weapons there. TJ Sheffield and Tyrone Tracy are both fairly reliable receiving options. Tracy has size, and that's definitely like his advantage. He's like 6'1", like 200 something pounds, probably like 205, 210, something like that. But he definitely looks huge on film and can go up and get balls. And we saw that in the red zone a few times for them. It'll be interesting to see how that matches up against Nebraska specifically. But those are guys you definitely have to be aware of. And same with like Mershawn Rice as well, another like reliable target who's made some big time plays for them this year. And he also has huge size, like 6'2", 200, probably 5'10" pounds, something like that. So those guys are weapons you got to watch out for.
Yeah, again, their pass game, that's what we're going to be seeing. Again, like Josh said, almost 65% of the time. Nebraska's secondary is going to have all that they can handle, as this is, unless you're playing Ohio State, this is the pass offense in the Big Ten, so in the Big Ten West. And then, maybe they're not as touted, but again, just because their pass game is so good, can still cause issues, their run game. Right now, true freshman Devin Mockabee has been getting a lot of the carries. They've kind of split between two backs, but Devin Mockabee has the most carries right now, 50 carries. 275 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 5.5 yards per carry. He's big body. I'm surprised he's a freshman. When I saw that, I was a little surprised. Very strong through the runs. Not as fast. He wears number 45. I almost thought he was like a linebacker or a fullback.
Yeah, it's really weird.
He definitely runs very strong. And again, he's pretty good at pass catching too, like on those screen plays. And they try to really get him worked in that way. And that's something that Nebraska really needs to be cautious of going into this game, something they really need to plan for.
The problem is their run game can just disappear. And like against Maryland, it definitely did. They only had 13 yards against Maryland on the ground or something like that. And like Maccabee had like 2 yards a carry or something along those lines. Obviously some sacks in there. Reduce some of those yardage, but at the end of the day, the genesis for like what the issue here is the run blocking. I mean, it just hasn't been good this year. Like it's definitely Purdue's worst point, probably maybe on their whole team when it comes to like how efficient they are up front on the ground. When it comes to pass blocking, they've been definitely at least respectable, but by no means impressive. And we've seen Aiden O'Connell hit and strip sack this year, and so things like that are possible. And there's gonna be opportunity in the game for that for sure.
Because if he's just sitting there. With all the time in the world, it's going to be a long game for Nebraska football.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that Purdue's done well is they've capitalized well in the red zone. I mean, they're 18th right now in offensive red zone efficiency in the country. And like at the goal line, they have no fear into going into like super package sets and, bringing in like 2, 3 tight ends or extra linemen and going big and trying to just jam it in the end zone. But the thing is, they're also really dangerous, obviously, with play action there and trying to hit like Payne Durham in the end zone or something like that. I am interested to see exactly how that plays out, but I am nervous by how efficient they've been so far down there.
While their offense is very prolific and is going to give Nebraska all they can handle, their defense, on the other hand, presents some opportunities. This is where Nebraska, if we're going to win this game, we're going to have to be able to very effectively attack this defense. One thing that gives Nebraska fans some hope for this year is they're 96 in sack percentage and only 4.44% of the plays, which is great because our offensive line is our worst quality by far as a team.
Again,
it's not
always
close.
so kind. Man,
It's not even close.
so generous. Yeah, it's definitely tough. And I agree. I mean, like it's the matchup you need to see here. But even with that said, though, they still have some talented pass rushers. I mean, Branson Dean, one of their D linemen, number 58, he's been very solid at getting to the quarterback and very efficient in the snaps that he's got. And so I agree that, like, yes, as a whole, they haven't been that efficient, but at the same time, they have shown moments of lighting up the QBs and getting there. So it's not like they're not dangerous.
Yeah, I think the good thing, though, is it looks like their interior linemen are almost the better players than their defensive ends. And maybe because, at least Hickson's in the middle where we at least have one serviceable offensive line, maybe that can at least be a fair enough matchup where Hickson's not going to get beat every time like our friend Turner. So, at least at least we have a chance. So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, overall with the defense, though, they've been a very balanced defense, and they don't give up very many big plays. They don't get burned downfield very often. They're just a very solid Big Ten defense. I think that starts probably with their safeties because both of them are very, very good. Like Sanusi Kane, I mean, the guy hits hard, and he's also just been really good up near the line of scrimmage against the run and establishing that presence. They're a very versatile defense in the fact that they can go cover 2, cover 1. And drop guys back. They like doing some Tampa 2 as well. So they're very versatile. And then like you pair Kane with another really, really good safety in Cam Allen, who has 3 INTs this year and seems to have very good instincts. It makes their secondary really reliable and one of a secondary that just doesn't get smoked like some of the other secondaries we played so far this season. They only give up 56.4% opposing completion percentage, which is top 20 in the country right now. And I think that definitely goes to show like how efficient their secondary can be.
The one thing also they've actually been kind of good in is run defense. They're only giving up 3.3 yards per rush, which is 18th in the country. Again, I think that has to do a lot with their interior defensive line. They've been pretty impressive. And I think if Nebraska wants to have some success, it's going to be getting the ball out there in some space and attacking those flats in comparison to, again, that some of that inside rush has been eaten up. But they also, they haven't played too efficient of run offenses yet either. And when they played Minnesota, Ibrahim was hurt. So I think that kind of has part of it to do with it too.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it is fascinating. Like I said, there's nothing that stands out. Like when you watch this defense, you're not like, wow, like this is a world beater. But they're also just very reliable, and they force you to beat yourself. I think that's where it's been crucial. And they've gotten some really crucial turnovers in games that have changed the tide, and their offense converts on them. So they're just a very efficient Big Ten team, and that's why they're hard to beat. Let's move on to the X-Factors here, because there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to these matchups. Let's start on the offensive side for Nebraska. What are your thoughts? What's going to be the game changers for us?
Yeah, like I was saying with Casey Thompson, just being able to give him time. When Casey isn't blitzed, he's the 4th best quarterback in the Power 5. But when he is blitzed, he's 58th out of 71. So Nebraska, we really need to start doing a good job of stopping the blitz, of giving Casey time.
I think this is something we talked about with like Mark Whipple and just drawing up more options for Casey just to dump the ball off or help him in some sense with some of these max protects. We talked about, this is actually something that Maryland did well, as they were bringing in like tight ends and fullbacks in pistols, like what we've seen with us doing with Chancellor Brewington. And they were having a lot of success. And even on a play like that, there was one where Talia like stepped up into the pocket and threw it off of like 1 foot, had like a 58-yard touchdown. And so like those types of plays are definitely going to be possible here, but I think it's going to take Mark Whipple getting a little bit creative with how we draw up these protections and giving Casey options to dump the ball off when blitzed.
Yeah, those shallow crosses really work with Alante Marcus and Trey Palmer with Casey Thompson. Again, where he can just hit him in stride. It only starts off as 3 yards, but just giving those athletes space to make plays, it turns into a lot more than that. So Yeah, again, or Anthony Grant. We saw the best hit of the whole game when we were down 13-0, and he just destroys a guy on the sideline. That's a dump off. That's a dump off pass. Yes, exactly. So that's just a dump off pass. So yeah, giving Casey Thompson some outlets, some lifelines is desperately important when, you know, our offensive line is the worst offensive line in the Big Ten and possibly the Power 5.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously the run game is going to be really interesting. I mean, Anthony Grant, we need to establish something here. And because just to start burning the clock and keeping the ball out of O'Connell and the Purdue offense's hands. I mean, just if we can start sustaining these long drives, and we've been pretty good on third down this year, actually. 28th in the country on third down at 45.45%. The first down success is what's been killing us, is like, you know, whether we have like a penalty on first down or the sacks on first down, like those types of things have just been drive killers for us this year.
Yes.
So we just got to eliminate those early down mistakes. Obviously easier said than done, but my goodness, give us some third and manageables and we're pretty efficient. I just think we need to utilize the edge. Like I mentioned, spread this defense out, punish them for blitzing and create space. We just haven't been able to utilize like Alante in space or Trey, like get those screens out there, get Anthony Grant in space. Like I'm just so confused by why Whipple is so unwilling to do things like that, especially when Casey's had so many problems, or this offensive line has had so many problems when blitzed.
Yeah, we're going to have to, you know, again, we say it every week, but it's the turnover battle and the more disciplined team here. Both teams are averaging 7.4 penalties per game, which is 94th in the country. So again, if we can just have less penalties than Purdue, if we can clean up those false starts, like you said, those holding penalties on our offensive line, that's just going to help our team out drastically against this team who did make mistakes. The reason they lost to Syracuse, the reason they lost to Penn State, again, they looked like the better team in both those games. Man. But they gave it away in the fourth quarter. It's there for you if you can be the more disciplined team. Yep,
exactly. So on the defensive side, I mean, I think the first question is, how do you minimize Payne Durham and Charlie Jones? And I think that those matchups are going to come down to Isaac Gifford and Luke Reimer. Like, what are your thoughts on that matchup?
I'd rather it be Isaac Gifford and Luke Reimer. We can't have Nick Henrich out in there covering, or Garrett Nelson get stuck on those guys, because we saw it last weekend. That's just big plays for the tight end when that happens. We got to find ways to put them somewhere else on the field, because when that's the coverage, it just hasn't been solid for us. But if it is Reimer and Luke Gifford, I feel very confident that, you know, we can slow these guys down, or slow Payne Durham down. With Charlie Jones, it's just, he's a physical wide receiver. Needs somebody who can really be able to body him up, take on that hand fighting and those contested catches well. Comfortable with, you know, Hartzog being on him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's huge timing for us to find a guy that at least we feel decent in with Malcolm Hartzog. We're gonna need every single body we can get on the outside here to keep this offense in check. But obviously, I think the biggest X factor has got to be the pass rush. Like, what are your thoughts on like the matchups there for Garrett Nelson, Mathis, and how we scheme in these pass rushes?
When blitzed, Aiden O'Connell's the 39th out of 71 Power 5 quarterbacks. And again, it's just making him uncomfortable is what we need to do to be successful here. I think, again, Garrett Nelson and O'Shawn Mathis having those pressures, having a few sacks. Again, that's going to give us opportunities to win the game with those strip sacks. Again, just hurry it up. Don't give them the time of day. To draw up some fun blitzes, we've seen that we've been with under Bush, we've been a little bit more creative, and I think we're just going to need more of the same with that.
I mean, their weapons are just zone blitzer or zone busters, so it's like I'm willing to take the shot at like letting them beat you deep and send some blitzes, play man on the outside, and see what happens. Like, I really don't mind it. And like in true passing sets, actually, their offensive line has actually been where they struggled the most. Their tackle, Eric Miller, has really struggled in like true passing sets, third and longs or shotgun, things like that. That's where they've had issues. So good news is that's where O'Shawn Mathis and Garrett Nelson have been at their best, is on those third and longs and true passing sets. So I think that's going to be the X factor to watch for in this game for sure.
Yeah. And again, Trey Palmer, we're keep feeding him. He's going to have another big game if we want to win. Yeah. And I definitely trust him at this point too. And again, I really do think Anthony Grant can have a bounce back game, even though they're really solid on the rushes. I don't think they've seen as good a running back as Anthony Grant this season, and I think that he's due for a big game.
Yeah. So let's move on to predictions. Obviously, this is a really weird game. Again, the 13 or 13.5 point line, the 58.5 point over under. It's definitely difficult. Like the odds aren't in Nebraska's favor, to say the least. So I'll start off here. I'm definitely worried about the matchups. Obviously, the biggest issue for me is that I'm just not convinced we're going to be able to get pressure. The matchups, though decent, I mean, we've had decent matchups against both Rutgers, Indiana. I mean, really, most of these games this year. I mean, if you give a guy like Aiden O'Connell the time to throw, he's going to pick you apart. Offensively, I think we could still have some opportunity here in the air, but their defense is solid enough where I'm just worried that when we're on the road, the X-Factor is going to come down to turnovers and penalties. And I haven't, even these last 2 games, we haven't seen the obvious improvement in those areas yet. And definitely Casey Thompson's been prone to make mistakes. Overall, I think this is going to be a really competitive game. I would take Nebraska with the points, but I'm going to pick Purdue to win 31-27 in a close loss on the road in West Lafayette.
Totally get it. I definitely take us 2 on the money line, but not so fast. No. I'm picking Nebraska to win this game.
Oh my goodness, you savage.
My narrative is that our defense has started definitely very slow in these first halves. But I think we know what we're getting with Purdue. They're
one-dimensional.
A better scheme, a better game plan, and we're going to throw some things at them. I think the man coverage instead of the zone that we've been running, that we've been willing to run with them.
Yeah,
I
Bill
think
Bush
can be very solid. Again, our safety coverage still worries me a little bit. But if we favor that Charlie Jones side of the field a little bit more, keep that run at bay. I think our interior linebackers. I think Henrich has done better at tackling in these last few games.
Yeah, I mean, they can do enough against this running game. Like, I think the matchup there works out well for us.
Then it's just down to the passing game. And again, we've seen us improve. It's definitely
it comes down to protecting Casey Thompson.
Yeah, comes down to that's exactly what that comes down to. Luckily, I think Rutgers was a better defense. Hopefully, our offensive line just continues to learn something. I think that's the exciting thing about Mickey Joseph is our team is adapting, evolving every single week and coming to compete. I think that he's going to come in this team prepared. And like, obviously you say that too, obviously if it's a close loss with their late game turnovers, I think that we can cause them. And I think that we'll have if we're in this game, I think Nebraska has an opportunity to take the win.
Well, I was going to say is you really couldn't ask for a better quote unquote warm-up game than Rutgers on the road last week to go into Purdue this week, where you have maybe a more stifling defense last week on the road. You end up clutching up the game, a game that really felt like we conquered something that we hadn't done something in years, and kind of broke the curse in that sense with close road games.
A one possession game.
Yeah, on the road. So
a 13-point comeback win.
Yeah, like you said, it's at least possible. And if Purdue thinks that we're going to be a pushover win and they're heavily favored, that's the narrative I think that you have to take for this game. It's definitely not the easiest of sells considering the passing matchups, but I don't think it's crazy. I'm really surprised that so many people are picking us to get blown out in this game. I really think this is going to be competitive.
Yeah, I do as well. Again, I take that Oklahoma and Northwestern and Georgia Southern games all with a grain of salt. It's Nebraska's gone through a few football seasons at this point.
It does feel like that,
it's just what it feels like. So again, just our mindset was so bad going into that game. Obviously, crazy turmoil, and then we just we started to figure it out. We got the bye week. We kind of reset as a team, and then we started playing football.
The defensive improvement and the improved performance from Ty Robinson, Nick Henrich, and Luke Reimer since Bill Bush has taken over since the bye week, we've seen progressive improvement. Consistent since then. So I guess that'd be the argument, is that this upward trajectory for our defense really kicks in this game. And then we just have enough on offense and maybe O'Connell makes some mistakes for us to win this game. I think that's probably the best narrative you got. And it's not that crazy, all things considered.
Yeah, it does feel like it rests on the offense.
Yeah, too. No doubt for sure. To establish the run and then show up
more than we did last week against Rutgers. No doubt.
Yeah, exactly. So drop your comments down below. Obviously, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Obviously, why would you ever want to do that? And drop all your comments down below because we want to see what you guys have to say. And with this wild game, and what you think the biggest X factor is for Nebraska versus Rutgers. But as always, guys, we appreciate you guys for watching. I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Backseat Sports, and we will see you next time.
Go Big Red.